The alien research vessel Luminous Seeker drifted silently through the dark void of the Andromeda sector. Its sleek blue hull gleamed under the light of distant stars. Inside, Science Officer Zilvar moved his 4 slender arms quickly across the control panel. His large eyes blinked with worry as he studied the scanner readings. "Captain, unknown vessels approaching from Sector 7, Zilvar called out, his voice high and musical. Captain Renta turned her eye stalks toward the main viewer. 3 black ships appeared, their jagged shapes cutting through space like knives. Her skin paled from bright green to a sickly yellow. "Kryvax raiders," she whispered. Everyone on the bridge froze. The Kryvax were known throughout this part of space as ruthless pirates who took what they wanted and killed anyone who stood in their way. "Evasive maneuvers," Captain Renta ordered. "Maximum power to engines." The Luminous Seeker lurched forward, but the Kryvax ships were faster. A red beam struck their ship, making the lights flicker. Alarms blared as smoke filled the bridge. "Weapons down. Shields at 20%, called the tactical officer as another blast rocked the ship. Zilvar knew they had minutes at most. He rushed to the communications station where the operator lay unconscious. With shaking hands, he activated the emergency beacon and began to record. "This is science vessel Luminous Seeker under attack by Kryvax forces in the Andromeda sector," he spoke quickly. "Coordinates follow. We request immediate assistance from any ships in range. We are unarmed researchers with 34 souls aboard." Another explosion shook the ship, throwing Zilvar against the wall. He pulled himself back to the console and added, "Please help us. They will show no mercy." He pressed the transmit button, sending the message hurling through subspace in all directions. Seconds later, a direct hit destroyed the communications array. The bridge fell into darkness as emergency lights flickered on. "Message away?" the captain asked, her voice weak. "Yes, but who would hear us out here?" Zilvar replied sadly. "We are beyond the range of any Velari patrol." The message raced through the emptiness of space, traveling farther than any Velari transmission had gone before. It crossed boundaries between galaxies, weakening but still intact, until it reached a small monitoring station at the edge of human space. On Frontier Station Delta, communications specialist Diane Miller sat at her post, sipping coffee and watching the monitor screens. The night shift was usually quiet, which was why she liked it. A soft beep from her console made her look up. "That's odd," she muttered, setting down her cup. The signal was faint, but definitely artificial. She adjusted her equipment, trying to clean up the transmission. After several minutes of work, the message became clear enough to understand. Diane's eyes widened as she listened. Though the language was strange, the Universal Translation Program slowly decoded it. The fear in the alien's voice needed no translation. She immediately called her superior officer, Commander Hayes. "You need to hear this." Commander Alan Hayes arrived quickly, his gray eyes serious as he listened to the recording. Though he was only 45, his hair had already turned silver from years of frontier service. "Can you verify the coordinates?" he asked. Diane nodded. "Yes, sir. It's coming from the Andromeda sector, about 3 weeks' travel at maximum speed." Hayes frowned. "That's outside our jurisdiction. Technically, we shouldn't even be monitoring that area." "But sir, they're clearly in danger," Diane said. "We can't just ignore it." Hayes looked at the star map, then at the distress call information again. He thought about regulations, about political boundaries, about possible alien traps. Then he thought about 34 souls facing death in the darkness of space. "Send a message to Earth Defense Force headquarters," he decided. "Priority 1. Include the full recording and all data we have on the signal." "Yes, sir," Diane replied, already typing. "What should I tell them?" Hayes stood straighter, his mind made up. "Tell them that someone needs our help, and humans don't ignore a cry for help, no matter where it comes from." As Diane sent the message, Neither of them knew they had just set in motion events that would change the course of galactic history forever. Admiral Jack Foster stood with his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the distress message for the third time. The alien's fear was clear even through the translation. When the recording ended, he turned to face the officers gathered in the Earth Defense Force headquarters meeting room. "This is troubling," he said. His deep voice filled the room. "The Andromeda sector is not our territory. Sending ships there could be seen as an act of aggression." Commander Hayes appeared on the large screen, connecting from Frontier Station Delta. "With respect, Admiral, we can't ignore this. Those people will die without help." Foster ran a hand over his short gray hair. "I understand your concern, Hayes, but we must consider the diplomatic risks." Lieutenant Susan Ross stepped forward. She was the youngest officer present, but her knowledge of alien species was unmatched. "Sir, if I may," she said, placing a data tablet on the table. "We've identified the attackers from the visual data. They're Kryvax raiders." She pulled up images on the main screen. "The Kryvax have been on our watch list for 3 years. They don't just raid ships. They take captives and force them to work in mining operations." "Slaves," Foster said, his expression darkening. "Yes, sir," Susan continued, "and they've been expanding their territory steadily. If they're now in the Andromeda sector, they're getting closer to our outer colonies." Foster was quiet for a long moment. Everyone in the room waited for his decision. Finally, he nodded. "We'll send help, but we need to be careful. A small fleet only, enough to rescue survivors, but not so many that it looks like an invasion force." He turned to his aide. "Prepare the battleship UES Dauntless as the flagship. We'll need 4 support vessels with full medical teams." "Who will lead the mission, sir?" asked the aide. Foster thought for a moment. "Captain Frank Nelson. He has experience with first contact situations and combat experience if things go badly." Within hours, Captain Nelson arrived at headquarters. He was tall with broad shoulders and dark skin that contrasted with his close-cropped silver hair. After a brief meeting with Admiral Foster, he began selecting his crew. "I need the best," he told Personnel Officer Gary Wilson. "People who can fight if necessary, but who understand our primary mission is rescue and assistance." Wilson nodded and brought up personnel files on his screen. "I recommend Lieutenant Olivia Turner as your pilot. She holds the record for precision navigation through asteroid fields." Nelson reviewed her file and nodded. "Add her to the list." For Security Chief, Greg Phillips is available. Former Special Forces, experienced in boarding operations. "Good. We may need to extract survivors from a damaged vessel." Dr. Lisa Warren for Chief Medical Officer. She's written papers on comparative alien physiology. Nelson continued selecting crew members throughout the day. By evening, the fleet was beginning to assemble in Earth orbit. The UES Dauntless was an impressive sight, its white hull gleaming against the blackness of space. At 600 meters long, it carried significant firepower, but also had extensive medical and science facilities. On the observation deck of the space station, Nelson stood with Lisa Warren watching the preparations. "Have you ever encountered Valari before?" he asked her. Lisa shook her head. "No, but I studied their biology from shared scientific data. 4 arms, lightweight skeletal structure adapted to their lower gravity world. Their normal body temperature is lower than ours. Will they survive until we get there?" Nelson asked quietly. Lisa's face was serious. "If any escaped the initial attack, yes. But 3 weeks is a long time, Captain." Nelson nodded. "Then we leave in 12 hours. Every minute counts." Throughout the next day, supplies and personnel shuttled up to the waiting ships. Engineers performed final checks on engines and weapon systems. Medical teams prepared treatment areas for possible casualties. Exactly 72 hours after Diane Miller had received the distress call, the rescue fleet departed Earth orbit. As they accelerated to maximum speed, Lisa Warren began recording in her personal log. "We're heading into unknown territory to help people we've never met," she wrote. I don't know what we'll find when we get there, but today I'm proud to be human. After 3 weeks of travel, the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed near the coordinates from the distress call. The 5 ships formed a defensive pattern as they approached the area. Captain Frank Nelson stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, his eyes fixed on the main screen. "Scan for any signs of the luminous seeker," he ordered. Lieutenant Olivia Turner's fingers flew across her control panel. "I'm picking up debris, Captain. And, wait, there's a larger piece. It could be part of a ship." "Life signs?" Nelson asked. Communications Officer Ben Richards looked up from his station. "Very faint, sir. I'm detecting approximately 15 signatures, but they're weak." Nelson nodded. "Move us closer, but maintain alert status. The Krygax might still be nearby." As they approached, they could see what remained of the luminous seeker. The once elegant research vessel was now barely recognizable. Its hull was torn open in multiple places, and only one section appeared to still have power. "Open a channel," Nelson ordered. Richards worked at his console. "Channel open, sir." Nelson stepped forward. "This is Captain Frank Nelson of the Earth Defense Force vessel UES Dauntless. We received your distress call and are here to offer assistance. Please respond." For several long moments, there was only static. Then a weak voice came through. This is Science Officer Zilvar of the Luminous Seeker. You came. From where?" "We're from Earth," Nelson replied. "We're here to help. How many survivors do you have?" 17, Zilvar answered, his voice growing stronger. "But several are badly injured. Our life support is failing. We have maybe 6 hours left." "We'll send a medical team immediately," Nelson said. "Can you get your people to your docking area?" "Yes, but..." Zilvar sounded confused. "You are human. From the galaxy beyond the void. We thought no one could hear us that far." "We heard you," Nelson said simply. "And we came. Prepare your docking bay. Help is on the way." Nelson turned to Dr. Lisa Warren. "Take a team over there. Be prepared for different atmospheric needs." Lisa nodded and hurried off the bridge. Within minutes, a shuttle departed the Dauntless carrying medical personnel and emergency supplies. Security Chief Greg Phillips led a team of 6 security officers to protect the medical staff. As they boarded the damaged alien ship, they wore lightweight environment suits with clear helmets. Inside, they found the surviving Valari gathered in a small area where emergency power still functioned. The aliens were taller than humans, with 4 arms and large expressive eyes. Their skin ranged from pale blue to green, though many now looked grayish from injury and exhaustion. "I can't believe you're real," Zilvar said as he approached Greg. "We sent that message into the void with no hope anyone would hear it." Dr. Warren began scanning the injured aliens with her medical devices. "Several have internal injuries," she reported. "We need to get them to our medical bay quickly." As they worked to stabilize the most critically injured Valari, the ship's sensors suddenly blared a warning. "Captain," Richards called from the Dauntless. 3 ships just dropped out of FTL. They matched the profile of Kryvax vessels. On the bridge, Nelson watched as 3 black angular ships appeared on the screen. "They've come back to finish the job," he said grimly. "Shields up. Weapons on standby." The largest Kryvax ship opened a communication channel. A harsh voice filled the bridge. "Alien vessel. This is Commander Drakthos of the Kryvax Dominion. You are trespassing in our territory. Depart immediately or be destroyed." Nelson stepped forward. "This is Captain Nelson of the Earth Defense Force. We are on a rescue mission. These people sent a distress call, and we responded. Their fate is none of your concern," Drakthos replied. "This sector belongs to the Kryvax. You will leave now." "We're not leaving without the survivors," Nelson said firmly. There was a pause before Drakthos spoke again. "Then you choose to die with them. So be it." Without further warning, the Kryvax ships opened fire. Their energy weapons struck the shield of the support vessel UES Mercy, causing it to flare brightly. Direct hit on the Mercy, Turner called out. Their shields are holding at 60%. Return fire, Nelson ordered. Target their weapon systems only. And get our people off that research vessel now. As the human fleet engaged the Kryvax ships, Greg Phillips rushed the Valari survivors toward the waiting shuttle. The rescue mission had just become a battle for survival. The battle erupted in bright flashes of energy as the human ships returned fire against the Kryvax vessels. Inside the damaged Luminous Seeker, engineer Kate Johnson worked quickly to help evacuate the Valari survivors. "There's something else we need to take," Zilvar said urgently to Kate. He pointed to a sealed compartment. "Our research data. It's too important to lose." Kate glanced at the compartment, then to Greg Phillips, who was coordinating the evacuation. "We have time," Greg decided. "Get it quickly." Zilvar used all 4 of his arms to enter a complex code. The compartment opened to reveal a small silver device. 3 years of scientific mapping and discoveries, he explained as he carefully removed it. Kate's eyes widened as she scanned the device with her handheld computer. "This contains an enormous amount of data," she said. "What exactly were you researching out here?" Before Zilvar could answer, an explosion rocked the ship. "We need to leave now," Greg ordered. The last shuttle departed the Luminous Seeker just as another barrage from the Kryvax ships hit the research vessel. It exploded in a flash of light and debris. Back on the Dauntless, Captain Nelson watched the battle unfold. The human ships had managed to damage one of the Kryvax vessels, but the UES Mercy had taken multiple hits. "Mercy reports shield failure imminent," Lieutenant Turner announced. "They have wounded aboard." Nelson made a quick decision. "Tell the Mercy to fall back. We'll cover them." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target the lead Kryvax ship's engines." The Dauntless fired a concentrated beam that cut through the Kryvax ship's shields. There was a small explosion near its rear section. "Direct hit on their propulsion system," reported the weapons officer. "The Kryvax ships are retreating," Turner said with surprise in her voice. "They're moving out of weapon range." Nelson frowned. That was too easy. "They'll be back with reinforcements." In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Warren treated the Valari survivors. Zilvar sat nearby, watching with fascination as she worked. "Your medicine is very advanced," he commented. Lisa smiled. "We've had plenty of practice patching each other up. Humans tend to get into trouble." "Why did you come?" Zilvar asked. "You traveled for 3 weeks to help people you've never met. Most species wouldn't do that." "It's what humans do," Lisa replied simply. "We help when we can." Captain Nelson entered the medical bay. "How are they doing, Doctor?" "They'll recover," Lisa said. "Their physiology is different from ours, but the treatments are working." Nelson turned to Zilvar. "I need to know more about the Kryvax. Why did they attack your research vessel?" Zilvar's large eyes darkened. "Captain, there's something you must understand. The Kryvax aren't just raiders. They're conquerors." He activated the data device he had saved from his ship, projecting a star map into the air. For the past 20 years, they'd been systematically taking over this entire region. 12 inhabited worlds have fallen to them already. Nelson studied the map with growing concern. "You're saying this is an empire, not just a group of pirates?" "Yes," Zilvar said. "They enslave populations, force them to mine resources, and then move on to the next world. My people, the Valari, have been watching them, gathering intelligence. That's what our mission was about." He changed the display to show a larger view. "According to our projections, they plan to expand into 3 more galaxies within the next decade, including yours." Nelson's expression darkened. "How many ships do they have?" "At least 200 warships, with more being built. No single species in our region has been able to stand against them." Kate, who had been examining the data device, looked up. "Captain, there's detailed information here about Kryvax fleet movements, weapons systems, and strategic plans. This could be invaluable. From a nearby bed, one of the injured Valeri spoke weakly. The Kryvax commander who attacked us. He took special interest in our research. That's why they came back. They don't want anyone to know their plans. A communication alert sounded. Nelson tapped his wrist device. Nelson here. Captain, came Turner's voice. The UES Sentinel has suffered severe damage. They have multiple casualties and system failures. Nelson looked at the injured aliens, then at the star map showing the extent of the Kryvax territory. He faced a difficult decision. Retreat with the rescued survivors and wounded crew, or push deeper into dangerous space with damaged ships. The fate of not just this mission, but potentially many worlds, would depend on what he chose to do next. Captain Nelson stood in the communication room of the Dauntless, facing the large screen where Admiral Foster's stern face looked back at him. The situation is worse than we thought, Admiral, Nelson explained. The Kryvax aren't just a local threat. According to the Valeri data, they're planning expansion into our galaxy within a decade. Foster's expression grew more serious as he reviewed the data Nelson had transmitted. This changes everything. I'm authorizing a full fleet response. The UES Intrepid and UES Victory are already preparing to join you. 3 more ships will follow within the week. What about our allies? Nelson asked. I'm contacting them now. The Arcturians have agreed to send ships. The Centauri Federation is considering our request. Foster leaned closer to the screen. In the meantime, gather as much intelligence as you can, but prioritize the safety of your crew. Understood, Admiral, Nelson replied. Nelson out. After the call ended, Nelson walked to the science lab where Kate Johnson and Zilvar were analyzing the Valeri research data. Lissa Warren was there too, running tests on tissue samples from the Valeri for her medical records. The Admiral is sending reinforcements, Nelson announced, but it will take time for them to reach us. Zilvar looked up from the data screen. Captain, there's something you should know about your people, about humans. What's that? Nelson asked. In our scientific classification system, Earth would be categorized as a death world, Zilvar explained. Kate raised an eyebrow. A what? A planet with conditions that would kill most sentient species, Zilvar clarified. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, dangerous predators, powerful storms, and toxic substances that your bodies have adapted to process. That's just normal Earth, Lisa said with a shrug. Not for the rest of us, Zilvar replied. Even the Kryvax evolved on a world with 1/3 of Earth's gravity and a stable climate. That's why your ships were able to damage theirs so easily. Your weapons and defenses are built by people used to surviving much harsher conditions. Nelson considered this information. You're saying we have a natural advantage against them? Potentially, yes, Zilvar nodded. The Kryvax have conquered so many worlds because those species were similar to them, adapted to gentle environments. They've never encountered Deathworlders before. That might explain why they retreated after taking minimal damage, Kate suggested. A call came through on Nelson's communicator. Captain, this is Turner. You're needed on the bridge. When Nelson arrived, Turner was at her pilot station, programming a new course. Captain, we've detected a Kryvax facility 2 light days from here. It appears to be some kind of processing station. The main screen showed a large space station orbiting a small moon. Ships were docking and departing at regular intervals. What kind of processing? Nelson asked. Greg Phillips, who had joined them on the bridge, studied the sensor readings. Based on the energy signatures and the number of life forms, I'd say it's a slave processing center. They'd bring captives there before distributing them to mining operations. Nelson's jaw tightened. How many captives? Sensors indicate approximately 3,000 life signs from at least 6 different species, Greg reported. Can we get closer without being detected? Nelson asked Turner. Yes, Captain. There's a debris field we can use for cover. Nelson made his decision. Set course for the station. We'll observe first, then determine if we can free those prisoners." As they approached the Kryvax facility, Turner demonstrated flying skills that amazed the Valari observers on the bridge. She navigated through the dense debris field with reflexes that seemed impossibly fast. "How can she react so quickly?" Zilvar asked in wonder. "She was a racing pilot before joining EDF," Lisa explained. "Plus, humans evolved with faster reflexes than most species. It helped us survive predators on Earth." Another demonstration of human adaptability came when they detected the atmosphere inside the Kryvax station. "It's high in methane and low in oxygen," Kate reported after analyzing the scans. "It would be lethal to the Valari, but humans can survive it for short periods with minimal breathing support." Zilvar stared at the humans with new understanding. "Now I see why no one has been able to stop the Kryvax. No one had the physical capabilities to fight them effectively." He paused. "Until now." Greg Phillips began planning a rescue operation with his security team. "If we can breach the station here," he pointed to a maintenance airlock, "we can reach the holding cells without crossing the main corridors." Captain Nelson studied the plan. "The Kryvax think their environment will protect them. They have no idea what humans can endure." As the Dauntless moved silently through the debris field, Nelson watched the Kryvax station grow larger on the view screen. Soon, the Deathworlders would show the Kryvax what they were truly up against. The rescue mission began in the early hours of station time when most Kryvax guards were at their lowest alertness. Greg Phillips led a team of 12 security officers, each wearing lightweight environmental suits with minimal breathing apparatus. They moved silently toward the maintenance airlock of the Kryvax station. "Remember," Greg whispered over the comm, "our primary objective is freeing the prisoners. Avoid engagement unless necessary." They reached the airlock, and Kate Johnson, who had insisted on joining the mission due to her technical expertise, quickly bypassed the security systems. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the station's reddish lighting cast eerie shadows. The atmosphere was thick and smelled of sulfur even through their breathing filters. They moved through narrow maintenance tunnels, following the path they had mapped from the Dauntless scans. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Nelson monitored their progress. Beside him, Zilvar watched with nervous anticipation. "The methane levels in that section are rising," Zilvar noted, looking at the environmental readings. "It would be lethal to my people within minutes." "Our team can handle it," Nelson assured him. "The suits will compensate." As the rescue team approached the holding cells, they encountered their first Kryvax guards. 3 tall, thin aliens with gray skin and 4-fingered hands stood at a checkpoint. The guards moved slowly, clearly adapted to their lower gravity homeworld. Greg signaled his team to hold position. He nodded to Officer Sam Lloyd, who raised a specialized weapon and fired. A pulse of energy temporarily disabled the guards' communication devices. Before the Kryvax could react, the humans had overtaken them with speed that must have seemed impossible to the guards. "Cell controls are this way," Kate said after checking a station map. They moved quickly to a central control room, where 2 more Kryvax were easily subdued. Kate got to work on the control panel. There are 6 separate holding areas. Each contains a different species. The atmospheres are adjusted to keep them weak but alive. "Can you open them all at once?" Greg asked. "Yes, but we'll need to coordinate evacuation by species. They can't all breathe the same air." Greg contacted the Dauntless. "Captain, we've reached the control center. We have access to the cells, but we'll need 6 different environmental setups for transport." "Understood," Nelson replied. "We're sending in the shuttles now. Each is configured for a different atmosphere." As Kate triggered the cell doors, alarms began to sound throughout the station. "They know we're here," Greg said. "We need to move fast." In the first holding area, they found hundreds of blue-skinned aliens with multiple eyes. Many were too weak to stand. The humans helped them toward the designated shuttle, their superior strength allowing them to carry those who couldn't walk. Word of the rescue spread quickly through the station's communication channels. Before the team had emptied the third holding area, a message came through on an open frequency. "This is Naktul of the Perdari Resistance. We've received reports of a rescue at Processing Station 12. Who are you?" Ben Richards, monitoring communications from the Dauntless, responded, "This is the Earth Defense Force vessel Dauntless. We're evacuating prisoners from the station." There was a pause before Naktul replied, "Earth, we've never heard of your world. How did you find us?" "We received a distress call from a Valari research vessel," Richards explained. One thing led to another. As the rescue continued, more messages arrived from other ships hiding in nearby systems. Word was spreading rapidly about the mysterious humans who dared to attack a Kryvax facility. By the time all 6 shuttles were loaded with freed prisoners, 7 different species had made contact with the Dauntless. Each had been fighting their own isolated battle against the Kryvax, not knowing others were doing the same. Back on the Dauntless, as the medical team worked to treat the freed captives, Ben Richards set up a communication hub to coordinate with all the newly contacted resistance groups. "They're asking for a joint meeting," Richards told Nelson. "They want to discuss forming an alliance." Nelson looked around at the bustling activity as humans efficiently cared for aliens of all shapes and sizes. The Valari were helping translate, building bridges between species that had never met before. "Tell them we accept," Nelson said, "and let them know Earth stands ready to help." Zilvar approached Nelson, his large eyes filled with emotion. "When we sent our distress call, we hoped for rescue. We never." The harsh face of the Kryvax commander appeared. "This is not over, human. You have won a battle, not the war. My loyalists are already regrouping." "Perhaps," Nelson replied calmly. "But now they know the truth. And they know that working together, we can defeat you." As Draktas's transmission cut off, his ship suddenly jumped to light speed, escaping into the darkness. On the bridge of the Dauntless, the Alliance representatives watched the remaining Kryvax ships power down their weapons. "We did it," Zilvar said in amazement. "We actually defeated their central fleet." "For now," Nelson cautioned. "But this is just the beginning." 3 months after the battle with the Kryvax Central Fleet, the Dauntless returned to Earth orbit. Captain Frank Nelson stood by the viewing window, watching his home planet grow larger as they approached. The blue and green world looked peaceful from space, giving no hint of the fierce environment that had shaped humanity into Deathworlders. "It feels strange to be back," Lisa Warren said, joining him at the window. "After everything we've seen." Nelson nodded. "And we're not coming back alone." Behind the Dauntless, 20 ships from 7 different alien species followed in formation. It was the first diplomatic delegation from the newly formed Galactic Alliance, coming to officially thank Earth for its intervention and to establish permanent relations. "Admiral Foster is waiting in the main conference hall," Ben Richards reported. "All Earth Defense Force commanders are present, along with government representatives." As the ships docked at the massive space station orbiting Earth, news of their arrival spread quickly across the planet. Screens everywhere showed the alien vessels, so different from human designs. People gathered in homes and public spaces to watch the historic moment. In the station's grand hall, Admiral Foster stood proudly as Nelson led the alien representatives inside. Zilvar walked beside him, now serving as the official Valari ambassador. "Captain Nelson," Foster said warmly, "Earth welcomes you and your allies home." Nelson saluted. "Admiral, may I present the representatives of the Galactic Alliance?" One by one, the alien leaders stepped forward, each expressing gratitude to Earth for standing against the Kryvax. Grell of the Perdari spoke last. "For 20 years we fought alone, believing no help would ever come," he said, his deep voice carrying through the hall. "Then humans answered a distress call meant for no one. You traveled across galaxies to help strangers. You risked your lives for people you had never met. And in doing so, you brought hope to worlds that had none. On a raised platform at the side of the hall, communications specialist Diane Miller watched with wide eyes. She had been flown in from Frontier Station Delta for the ceremony. Admiral Foster approached her. "Specialist Miller, please step forward." Surprised, Diane walked to the center of the hall. Foster handed her a small box. "For your attention to duty and quick action in responding to an unknown signal from beyond our space, you are awarded the Earth Defense Force Medal of Distinguished Service. Your decision to investigate that distress call changed the course of galactic history." Diane accepted the medal with shaking hands. "I just did my job, sir." "Sometimes that's all it takes," Foster replied. Later, in a smaller meeting room, Nelson briefed Foster and other EDF commanders on the current situation. "The Kryvax Empire is fragmenting," he explained. 17 worlds have declared independence so far. Commander Drakthos still controls about 40% of their former territory, but rebellions are spreading. Foster nodded. "And the Alliance?" "Growing stronger every day. 4 more species have joined since we left. They're pooling resources, sharing technology. The Velari are coordinating scientific research. The Perderi are training unified defense forces." "And humanity's role in all this?" Foster asked. "They want us to lead the liberation campaign," Nelson said. "They've seen what we can do, how we fight, and they trust us because we came when no one else would." Foster looked thoughtful. "The President has authorized full support for the Alliance. We're sending the main fleet next week. Admiral Chen will command." As the meeting concluded, Nelson stepped out onto a balcony overlooking Earth. Kate Johnson joined him, holding a data tablet. "New report from the Alliance scouts," she said. "They've identified the location of the Kryvax homeworld." Nelson took the tablet, studying the information. "So that's where Drakthos is hiding. The combined fleet will be ready to move against it within a month," Kate said. "The Trilleri are calling it the Unstoppable Fleet now. The name has caught on with everyone." Nelson smiled slightly. One distress call, one small decision to help. That's all it took to change everything. In the distance, a new ship rose from Earth's surface, larger than any before it, gleaming white against the blue sky. The UES Freedom, humanity's newest and most powerful vessel, built specifically for the Alliance campaign. As Nelson watched it ascend to join the gathering fleet, his communicator beeped. Ben Richards' voice came through, sounding urgent. "Captain, we're receiving a new distress signal. Unknown origin, coming from beyond the edge of mapped space." Nelson and Kate exchanged looks. Another call for help, another unknown danger, another chance to make a difference. "Put it through," Nelson said. "Let's hear what they have to say." Captain Nelson stood in the communication room of the Dauntless, facing the large screen where Admiral Foster's stern face looked back at him. "The situation is worse than we thought, Admiral," Nelson explained. "The Kryvax aren't just a local threat. According to the Velari data, they're planning expansion into our galaxy within a decade." Foster's expression grew more serious as he reviewed the data Nelson had transmitted. "This changes everything. I'm authorizing a full fleet response. The UES Intrepid and UES Victory are already preparing to join you. 3 more ships will follow within the week." "What about our allies?" Nelson asked. "I'm contacting them now. The Arcturians have agreed to send ships. The Centauri Federation is considering our request." Foster leaned closer to the screen. "In the meantime, gather as much intelligence as you can, but prioritize the safety of your crew." "Understood, Admiral," Nelson replied. Nelson out. After the call ended, Nelson walked to the science lab where Kate Johnson and Zilvar were analyzing the Velari research data. Lissa Warren was there too, running tests on tissue samples from the Velari for her medical records. "The Admiral is sending reinforcements," Nelson announced, "but it will take time for them to reach us." Zilvar looked up from the data screen. "Captain, there's something you should know about your people, about humans." "What's that?" Nelson asked. In our scientific classification system, Earth would be categorized as a death world, Zilvar explained. Kate raised an eyebrow. A what? A planet with conditions that would kill most sentient species, Zilvar clarified. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, dangerous predators, powerful storms, and toxic substances that your bodies have adapted to process. That's just normal Earth, Lisa said with a shrug. Not for the rest of us, Zilvar replied. Even the Kryvax evolved on a world with 1/3 of Earth's gravity and a stable climate. That's why your ships were able to damage theirs so easily. Your weapons and defenses are built by people used to surviving much harsher conditions. Nelson considered this information. You're saying we have a natural advantage against them? Potentially, yes, Zilvar nodded. The Kryvax have conquered so many worlds because those species were similar to them, adapted to gentle environments. They've never encountered Deathworlders before. That might explain why they retreated after taking minimal damage, Kate suggested. A call came through on Nelson's communicator. Captain, this is Turner. You're needed on the bridge. When Nelson arrived, Turner was at her pilot station, programming a new course. Captain, we've detected a Kryvax facility 2 light days from here. It appears to be some kind of processing station. The main screen showed a large space station orbiting a small moon. Ships were docking and departing at regular intervals. What kind of processing? Nelson asked. Greg Phillips, who had joined them on the bridge, studied the sensor readings. Based on the energy signatures and the number of life forms, I'd say it's a slave processing center. They'd bring captives there before distributing them to mining operations. Nelson's jaw tightened. How many captives? Sensors indicate approximately 3,000 life signs from at least 6 different species, Greg reported. Can we get closer without being detected? Nelson asked Turner. Yes, Captain. There's a debris field we can use for cover. Nelson made his decision. Set course for the station. We'll observe first, then determine if we can free those prisoners. As they approached the Kryvax facility, Turner demonstrated flying skills that amazed the Valari observers on the bridge. She navigated through the dense debris field with reflexes that seemed impossibly fast. How can she react so quickly? Zilvar asked in wonder. She was a racing pilot before joining EDF, Lisa explained. Plus, humans evolved with faster reflexes than most species. It helped us survive predators on Earth. Another demonstration of human adaptability came when they detected the atmosphere inside the Kryvax station. It's high in methane and low in oxygen, Kate reported after analyzing the scans. It would be lethal to the Valari, but humans can survive it for short periods with minimal breathing support. Zilvar stared at the humans with new understanding. Now I see why no one has been able to stop the Kryvax. No one had the physical capabilities to fight them effectively. He paused. Until now. Greg Phillips began planning a rescue operation with his security team. If we can breach the station here, he pointed to a maintenance airlock, we can reach the holding cells without crossing the main corridors. Captain Nelson studied the plan. The Kryvax think their environment will protect them. They have no idea what humans can endure.